Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Friday, and that means a visit from myjumpshot.com, the captain, Todd Leary. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you? Sun's shining. It's cold as all get out, but it's sunshine.
It looks good out there, but it looks good cold on paper. But let me tell you, the first thing I did, letting Hank out, was, Alexa, what's the temperature? 12, and I'm like, what? That's
on your own this morning, Hank.
Yeah, I said, see you, brother. But it's a good day out there. We hit the end of the week, and I'm still not used to this having a game Friday night. It's hard it's hard to get into that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's tonight. But it's not just a game either. It's a big game. It's a big name game. Indiana and UCLA. I think this is the first time UCLA has ever played in Simon Scott Assembly Hall.
Is it really? Oh wow.
Well, I mean, Bob Knight was not a fan of John Wooden back in the day because he
won a lot.
I think it was more about how he acquired his players from his good buddy there. I forget the guy's name. That they had it going before anybody had it going. His money man. But that's well known, a very well known story. But anyway, a lot going on. Indiana coming off a huge win, and of course it comes at Michigan State again, like it did about 4 years ago, which was crazy. Michigan State is not, and you've called this, and I think about it all the time, but they're not as good as where they were sitting at the top all year long. They're not as good as Michigan, and they're not as good as Purdue. That's no doubt.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not asking for the credit or bragging, kind of.
You've already got it, man. You've already got it.
But I mean, if you watch them play, and I consider myself, if you can define an expert at it, I'm only an expert because I watch a lot of basketball. I watch a lot of college basketball, and watching that team. If it weren't for Coach Izzo, that team would be under 500, in my opinion. Like he's gotten the most out of those guys, and their schedule was a bit soft. They won a couple of games that I think surprised a few people, surprised me early on, and that was great. But you can only do that so many times, and they just can't shoot the ball a lot like Indiana. I kind of thought it might be one of those games where one of the teams doesn't get to 50, just because both teams don't shoot the ball very well. I'm not trying to pick on them; the numbers don't lie, and they were ripe to be beat. I think I said it on the show a few weeks ago, like they're going to finish with 5 or 6, maybe even 7 losses now when the Big Ten's done. And it's going to come down. I'm surprised Illinois really got hit by, the bug of they had a bunch of illnesses. They had some injuries and all of that. I still believe the top 3 teams in order are Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan. And I think those are the best 3 teams in the Big Ten, but you still got to go out and play the games, and that's why Purdue and Michigan are sitting up there at the top right now. They're winning games that you need to win. And I saw that stat last week about Michigan and Dusty May have won 5 games in a row by 4 points or less. Like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're winning the tight games. They're not giving up games that they could easily. Well, Indiana had that issue with Maryland and Purdue. And that would have been extraordinarily valuable. Well, hell, think about what that would have done to Indiana's season. They would probably very possibly be at the bottom of the tournament bracket right now had they gotten those wins over Purdue and Maryland, especially if you add in the fact of the potential of getting another Q1 win over UCLA tonight, which I think this is a toss-up game. Indiana has every chance to win this game.
Yeah, they really do. The tail of the tape, I think, tonight is going to be, if UCLA is able to impose their will defensively and make it a rock fight, Indiana's in trouble. And even though Indiana likes to score in the paint and all of that, getting good quality shots has not been, it's not been Indiana's strong suit over the last several years. And I'm not just talking Mike Woodson era, like over the last 10 years. I think they've struggled to have guys that, can create for other people and create for themselves. And so this is a UCLA team that prides themselves on defense. They're going to play a lot of help defense. They're physical. It should kind of play into Indiana's favor. Like Indiana matches up well with UCLA. It's just, I think the Big Ten gets credit for being a physical team a lot. But there's a lot of teams that come in here and try to prove their physicality, and I think UCLA is going to be one of them.
Yeah, and Mick Cronin has he's found something to complain about all season long, whether it's his team, the travel, the officiating. But I guess it worked because his team was going through a funk, and then they kind of came out of it. I think they won 7 straight until they lost at Illinois just the other night. But they don't have any luck winning back east, Todd. I think they're 0-5 when they travel, and their conference wins have come mainly over on the road, at least at Washington, Oregon, and USC, I believe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's kind of proving, that travel from west to east is, you can use a little bit of the travel and all that. I think a lot of it is the newness of playing in the Big Ten, playing in these new arenas. Although I think there's been maybe at least 3, maybe 4 teams that have traveled east to west and gone out there and swept all 4 teams out there. So,
I don't know what goes on there the last couple of days, but
I think it's the teams.
We have internet surge, I think. But Todd,
can you still hear me?
Go right ahead. Yeah, you got you, brother. Go on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just I don't necessarily think it's the travel as much as I know it's difficult. He made a big point about, when you travel out there, you get to play, UCLA and USC back to back. You don't even have to switch hotels. They're 10 miles apart. I get that side of it, but at the end of the day, the teams that are better are going to win. And I think the teams that have gone from East Coast to West Coast have been better teams, and that's why they've gone out there and had more success than those guys coming to the East Coast.
Brian says UCLA shoots around 35% from 3, which that's, you're going to take that in today's game if you've got a guy inside. Michigan State had no answer for Indiana's inside game, which that was pretty much the only game that they had, really. But what is UCLA? What do they hang their hat on?
They hang their hat defensively on just making it really tough, trying to make every possession difficult to score. And, like they're the contrast of Iowa. Iowa tries to outscore you. UCLA is going to try to keep you from scoring very many points. And offensively, they're decent. Like, they don't play super slow. But, I mean, they're also definitely not an up-tempo, fast-paced team either. And so this could definitely be a rock fight. This could be a game both teams don't score 60. And if it is, that's the game UCLA wants. I think it's advantage UCLA if this is a low-scoring contest. If Indiana can get up into the 70s, I think they got a much better shot of winning this one.
Yeah, and Indiana now, oddly, after the announcement that the change was coming, Mike Woodson seems to have found a different way of his lineup. He did not start Malik Renew. He did not start Miles Rice. Now, I don't know that Rice doesn't start again, but not starting Malik Renew, finally, not going with the 2 bigs, was something that gave Indiana, I don't want to say an advantage, but it gave them something Michigan State couldn't handle. Luckily for Indiana, those guys weren't in at the same time because they both were kind of in foul trouble. Ballo fouled out. But Mike Woodson was able to stagger them in there, so he kept bringing somebody in that was just uh, beating up on Michigan State on the inside, and that seemed to work for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I did. It'll be interesting to see. I think late in his 4-year tenure at Indiana, I'm speaking for him, and I don't know this at all, but I mean, I think he's kind of seeing maybe the fun part of coaching and getting to tweak your lineups. I think this is what Coach Knight used to do a lot. He used to tweak the lineups a lot and try to find what's working. And, I think one of the biggest differences in Todd Leary's opinion of the difference between the NBA and NCAA basketball is, the best 5 players, the most talented 5 players are not necessarily the ones that play the best together on the floor. And in his NCAA, I think that proves itself out all the time. That's how you can get, guys like Braden Smith, who are not barely even 6 feet tall, to be one of the best players in the country. And that's very much more difficult to do in the NBA. And so I just feel like Mike Woodson might be enjoying the part of the lineup right now or the job right now where you get to play with the lineup and you don't have to put the McDonald's All-Americans out on the floor in order to have guys play well together. And I honestly feel like I think that he's probably seeing a little bit of that right now.
Yeah, and so they played Tuesday, I guess, against Illinois.
Yep.
So I'm assuming they just stayed back east for the rest of the week.
Yeah, you would definitely assume so.
Yeah, especially with the complaint of travel. There's no way that he's going to be going back. So what are you expecting in this game?
Yeah, I expect it to be a low scoring, both teams, it might be one of those 10 minutes into the game that, it's 8-6. That's what I'm expecting. I hope I'm wrong because that's not my favorite type of game to watch. I'd rather them both be flying up and down the court, and I hope Indiana outscores them, at the end. But UCLA is not a great 3-point shooting team. They're not a great scoring team, but they're capable of doing it. If you can get them, they've all – I know it's not the same thing as what it used to be, but, they've all grown up watching Assembly Hall as well. Like, it'll be a little bit of a unique experience for all of those guys coming in here. And so a lot of them were probably recruited by Indiana. And so it'll be an interesting time. If Indiana could jump out early, I think they have a much better chance. If this is a rock fight and it's a slow game and tough to score, I definitely think the advantage goes to UCLA.
What does Indiana need to do and have to do to win this game?
I think they've got to come out and establish offense in the first half, like pretty quickly. This is not a team you want to try to come back from. Indiana's not built as a team that's going to be great at coming from behind. UCLA is definitely a team that plays better from the lead and can just try to make every possession difficult. And so I think Indiana's going to have to shoot the ball a little bit better than they did at Michigan State. I think that, I think UCLA is a better defensive team than Michigan State is. But, they're also not invincible. And if you can impose your will, I think UCLA was able to get out and run a little bit. And when Illinois was able to get out and run a little bit against UCLA. And if you can do that, if you can force them to play your way, you have a definite advantage. If Indiana can force them to play faster, Indiana has a definite advantage in the game. And then shooting the ball, it's going to come down to that again, which it does every week. When you're not a consistent, good shooting team, that becomes one of the keys almost every week. And I don't think it's any different this week.
Yeah, Indiana, they didn't have anybody. I guess Malik Renew was actually the star of the last game with 19 points. And he missed a bunch of early bunnies. He could have really boosted that up. But he goes 8 of 19. Again, all of that coming inside. What's UCLA like defensively on the inside? What are they going to offer?
They're good and big and physical. I forget the guy's name. It's kind of a French sounding name, I think, or whatever. But I mean, they've got some big guys that, UCLA is comparable in recruiting to Indiana. Like it's they probably out west battle the argument of, are they still a blue blood? At one point in time, they were the blue blood. There was only one blue blood in the whole world, and it was them. And they were the originator of it. And so, that's never going away. We say it about Indiana. I say it about UCLA too. Like, this is two programs that are trying to get back to dominance the way that they, dominated. Dominated may not be the right word, but they were consistently competitive at a national level almost every single year. And both these teams are fighting to get back to that, back to that status. And I think, Mick Cronin, I think he's a guy that's built some. He's been there for several years. They had some really early success going to a Final Four, really early on. Tough loss to Gonzaga that year on almost a half-court shot. But, yeah, I mean, they had really early success out there with Michael Lewis as one of his assistants. Program, they kind of have an identity. I can tell you what it is they're good at and some of the things they struggle with. So, yeah, Mick Cronin's done a good job with that program. And they're a couple of recruits being really, really good again.
Indiana was able to win that Michigan State game, like you mentioned, without shooting the three-point ball very well at all. They went 3 of 13 in the game. Of course, that was not nearly as bad as Michigan State's 4 of 23. Those two teams combining to go 7 for 36. That's I think I could shoot that, man, and I'm terrible.
When you're bragging about 3 of 19 or whatever Indiana was, you're the tallest midget in the world at that point. Like, yeah, I mean, this was just a battle of two teams that are not. Yeah, sorry, whatever. They're just not good at shooting the basketball. And Indiana won the battle of being the less bad shooting team.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think they can count on that every game. You don't want to hang your hat on that.
It reminds me of the movie where they were making the plan to break the people out of the Iranian hostage situation, the movie that they made, making the fake movie. And he said, this is the worst plan that we have. Something like that.
This is the best terrible plan we could possibly come up with. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just trying to have the other team, hope the other team shoots poorly is not a great strategy and a consistent one you can win with. But hey, you know what? I don't want to take anything away from it. That's a tough place to play, and they went in there and got the job done. And everything was lined up against Indiana to win that game. If Indiana had lost, we would be blaming it on all of the things that, the new coaching thing Indiana's going through, and then the Tom Izzo breaking Bob Knight's all-time record. Like, we would have given the credit to those factors, and Indiana was able to overcome that and get a win. So I'm not making any excuses for it. They did a great job with that one. It's time to stack them together. I hope that's the theme of the team right now, is stacking good performances together, because they had a good performance even though they lost at Purdue, and I think everybody felt still okay with the effort that was put out on the floor. And then they came back the next game, laid an egg, and the effort looked horrendous. So, I don't want to fall back on that. Let's give them the credit. They did great at Michigan State. Let's just stack some good performances together and defend Assembly Hall. And, that's at some point in time, this program has to get back to teams really, really fear coming to Assembly Hall. Right now, teams look at it almost like an exhibition tour. They get to come here and tour the facility and see it and walk out with a victory. And that's not where the program needs to be.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.